Hi, welcome to another episode of I Don't Have the Answers, but let's talk about it anyway. I'm your host, Tim Four, and today's show is going to be a little different. It's going to be an on location throughout the day. I'm going to pop up with a couple different ideas and suggestions and things that pop into my head, and I'm just going to record them. I know I look a little scruffy. You're going to have to deal with it. First, we're going to talk about why is it that our social networking and our social media has become our only social outlet. I was talking to my wife today and reminiscing about some of the stories that I heard about how local high school in the Tampa Bay area, they have this massive, beautiful auditorium built in, I believe, and don't quote me on this, in the 1800s, late 1800s. Now, my kind of rusty memory tells me that it was designed not originally for shows, for operas, or for anything else. It was designed for news, because at that time there was no TV, there was no radio that was available to everybody. So they all would come walking, or whatever mode of transportation they had available, and socially gather, and they would get their news by someone that would travel the area and provide it to them. Sometimes the news was not so recent because it would take a while to get from area to area. But they would make a day of it. They would get together and they would talk and socialize, and they would stay for the entire broadcast, so to speak. Not just picking and choosing what little bit of news they wanted to hear, but they would be there for the whole thing. And they would formulate opinions based on every ounce of detail that was provided to them. They would gather, they would make a day of it, and then they would go on their way. So let's compare that to now. We only pick what little bit of news makes us feel better. We only listen to the things that appeal to us, and we format opinions based on this little sliver of detail that we get from the people that we choose. How is that better? Then we don't gather, we don't discuss, we just lay blame, and we yell, and we berate, and we put down. How is that better? How is that an improvement? Just a little food for thought. As I go through the rest of my day, I'll expand upon that and talk a little bit more. But I wanted to just share that beginning point for today's show. By the way, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that I'm scruffy because it's a holiday weekend and I don't feel like shaving. Thank you, and I'll talk to you in the next segment. Welcome to another segment of I Don't Have the Answers, but let's talk about it anyway. It's a little bit different this week. I'm doing it from my recording from my phone throughout the day as these ideas pop into my mind. So you can see a little bit about how the process works for me, because these things, it's not a scripted kind of show most of the time. It's just thoughts that pop into my head, and I try to expand upon them throughout the day and week until I get a cohesive-ish show to wrap it around. This week it's all about, when did we decide that all the news isn't worth listening to and we can just segment what we want and only believe and only follow and only pay attention to the parts that pertain to us? Every bit of the information that's out there is the true information that's out there. Sorry, let me make sure I specify. The true information that's out there, every bit is important. We can't pick and choose what we want to believe and what we want to think we need to have all of it to be able to make a cohesive or to make a intelligent decision to base our life around. We can't make choices based on just a part of the information that's out there. And we need to get back to paying attention to everything. We need to get back to it being a social experience again. We need to try to capture that way of life again, because if not, we're making the situation worse. I was talking to my wife about how there is a group of people that are tired of the way that the world... Go ahead. Sorry, I had to allow someone to cut me off. Sorry about that. I'll probably try to edit that out. But anyway, there's a group of people that are tired of the way the world is going, as am I. They're tired of the racist situations, as am I. But their choice and their decision to fix it is to self-isolate, group together and buy a very large piece of land, and they're going to segregate themselves in all aspects of life. They're going to educate themselves. They're going to self-police themselves. They're going to have a like-minded police force and fire department and doctors and medicine. Everything is going to be based on that same way of thinking, that same group, and it's all going to be isolated. Now, I did not say which group and which belief, because I don't care which group it is. I think that this is a dangerous road that we're walking on. There have been many groups before that have tried to isolate themselves and keep themselves separate from the rest of the country that have tried and failed. Because the reason for their isolation is not one of change, but one of staying the same. The only two groups that I am aware of, because there may be more, the only two groups that I'm aware of that have been successful in this endeavor are Mennonites and Amish. And in my personal opinion, the reason why they are successful is because that their segregation and their separation from the rest of the country is not solely based on cultural, but also religious beliefs, and they intentionally integrate with our society on their own terms. They haven't totally isolated themselves. They still have a way to participate in our society on their own terms. I believe that's the only way that they're going to be successful. Now, they still have their own community and their own situation that they live in, but it's different than this particular group. And I bring it up not to say that they're wrong. Okay? I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that they are wrong for this way. I just think it's important that we point out every single thing that's happening in our society to try and shape everybody's opinion so that they all have the details and the information. How is this going to impact me? How is this going to impact my life based on this information? Well, if we continue to segregate and isolate instead of coming up with a plan to fix what's wrong, we're just going to be creating more problems. We thought that it was a good idea, we as in the United States, thought it was a good idea to create Native American reservations. And can we agree that that wasn't exactly the best way to handle things? Now, this isn't exactly the same. It's different because they are doing it themselves. It's not being imposed upon them. But there's still crime. There's still problems. There's still poverty. There's still issues, regardless of the way that they go about it. I think that we're not going to eliminate these issues by segregating and dividing ourselves. We've got to come up with a way to integrate all aspects of our lives. We can't forget where we've come from or what has happened, because there are travesties that have occurred. We have to find a way to build a better tomorrow by adding these pieces together, not dividing them, not separating them, not subtracting one from our society. Again, this is only segment 2 of today's show. There's more to come, I'm sure of it, and I'll probably edit out all the parts that didn't make any sense to me or you. And I hope you enjoyed today's scruffy version of On the Fly recording with the Answer Man. Talk to you in the next segment. Thank you all for joining me for this third segment. I think it's going to be the last one for this week, as I continue to talk about how we are making our own problems. Because that's what it all is. That's what it boils down to. There are problems out there that are serious. Every one of them that is facing us right now is serious. But they are all man-made for the most part. The severity in which these things are affecting our lives, the problems that we are facing with social distancing, with the way we treat one another, these are all things that we are doing to ourselves. And the bad thing is, what's terrible in my opinion, we know how to fix it. It's simple. I mean, there's this book that I highly recommend anybody who's out there to take a look at it. It's Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And it talks about basic stuff. How to treat one another. What to do with our possessions and our things. Everything that should be inherent in everybody's nature, but it isn't. Because we take things the wrong way. Everything is... We are so sensitized or desensitized in certain situations that we don't know how to react to things anymore. I think that if we take the time to remember all of these things, that in a way that it's meaningful, to stop reacting so quickly just because it might offend you for a second. Because that's all it is. It's initial knee-jerk reactions cause offense. Now, don't get me wrong, there are major issues out there. I don't want to get off track. I don't want to can't believe it. Even I, right now, am trying to backpedal to make sure I don't offend anyone. I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to double check what I'm saying. I should be free to speak fairly and clearly without having someone misrepresent me. Because everybody who's listening to the show, who's watching the show, realizes that I am not a negative person. I try to be positive, and I try to be even and fair. But I've been so conditioned by everything else that's going on that I feel that I need to justify the words that are coming out of my mouth for the show. I shouldn't have to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. I should be comfortable and free to speak as long as I'm not being rude in any way that I feel like. But anyway, why do we feel that we need to change the way that someone else feels? Why do we need to force our opinions on other people? Why is it that everybody has to be afraid of what's going on, of what they're saying, of what they're feeling? Sharon told me about a post that she was afraid to share because it meant something to her, but she was worried that it would be taken the wrong way by other people. Why do we have to be so scared about the way that we feel? I mean, granted, if the way you feel is actually really, really wrong, and you know it, like, Hannibal Lecter kind of wrong, if you feel that you need to eat your neighbor, yeah, I would be afraid to mention that. That's wrong. But feeling like you're being criticized for the wrong reason and being scared to talk about it openly should never enter into your mind. You should never have that kind of reaction to your own feelings. The post was more along the lines of, if I support this, I'm automatically against this. If I am this, I'm automatically against this. It's not a true-false binary world. Why are we forcing people to live in this kind of situation? We are making people change their belief structure. Sorry about that, just dropped the camera. Anyway, we're making people change their belief structure just because outside influences are forcing us to think that way. Why? Why are we doing that to each other? I know it's a lot of the same stuff that I talked about a couple weeks ago, but I think it bears repeating. If it's not your belief, if you don't feel that way, so what? Keep scrolling, move on to the next post. If it's something you like, go ahead and like it. If you don't, move on. We are not supposed to like the same things. We're not supposed to believe in the same things. We're not supposed to care about the same things. It would be a very boring world if we did. But I urge you all to comment back, to tell me what you think, to give me some feedback this time. I need to know what you think. Because I can't continue to spew what I think is right and what I keep saying over and over again without some kind of feedback. Or I'm just some crazy guy that's talking into his phone in the car while he's driving down the road. Well, yeah, I am. But do I have it right? Am I correct? Am I way off base? You tell me. You tell me what you think. Because Lord knows, I don't have the answers.